I'm Josh Rosenau, and this is
Hi, Stephen Brooks.
Stephen Brooks, and we're gonna talk about driving styles
Yeah.
and how we think that driving could be changed so that people are happier, more efficient, safer, and overall better drivers. The premise for this is a problem that we'll probably see shortly, which is that people in high volume traffic have a tendency to rush right up to the driver right in front of them, tailgate a little bit, and if the traffic volume gets slow enough and the volume gets dense enough, they'll also tend to come to complete stops. In this video, we're going to try to demonstrate a way of driving that anticipates slower drivers and has you slowing down but never completely stopping. So Steve here is driving his car. He's going to be following drivers and keeping a safe distance when we're on the freeway. We're in Philadelphia. We are driving up to 202 and then on to 76 East, going from the western suburbs into the city, which is a very, very common route for commuters. And as we're doing it, again, we're just going to do our best not to stop. And some interesting things happen. When you go slow and you create enough space not to stop, enough stopping distance between drivers, people behind you can get upset, right?
Yeah. They get frustrated, and one thing that happens when I've done this before is that they'll go from behind you and they'll overtake you and pull in front in often an aggressive manner. But the best way to react to that is just to slow down further and to reestablish that large distance between you and the car in front of you. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how many people pull in front of you. You just keep readjusting that distance, such that nothing can affect you, essentially.
Right.
Nothing can ever make you feel upset on the road. I think this method completely neutralizes possibilities for road rage.
Right.
Except in extreme circumstances.
Yeah. You're giving them space, you're giving you space, and hopefully you won't feel pressure just to resort to that old tactic of driving straight up to the person right in front of you, just like the person behind you wants to do. So here we go, we're coming up on 76 right now.
So you can see there's a Honda Odyssey in front, and this is generally the kind of distance that I like to keep. So if I start to see brake lights or I see that this distance compressing a little bit, I'll take my foot off the gas. But yeah, this is general. I mean, how about you, Josh?
I would say this is about right for me too. Okay. It's probably on the order of 100 yards.
Yeah. Football field.
And that may seem like a lot, but
things I'm getting used to.
The main thing that you're going to realize is that the distance is closed very shortly, even if you're going 20 or 30 miles an hour. When you're going 60, that distance is even shorter in terms of time. So this is designed for really slow speeds. If we were to have our speed right now, we would still have enough distance to keep moving at a slow pace, even though everyone else is slowing down. So here, the traffic's starting to get thick. Steve should be slowing down.
Foot off the gas. The person behind me is visibly frustrated. But this is one of those things where you can't worry about people behind you. That's I think philosophically an important point. The only people that matter are the people in front of you.
Right.
Right? Like whether or not somebody's mad isn't important. So I try to only focus on the people in front of me. If I think it's easy to get caught up in like the facial expressions of people in your rearview mirror, but takes a little bit getting used to ignore it.
And to that point, one thing to focus on, rather than, the things that you had been focusing on, try to find a point in the distance where you begin to see brake lights, and try to gauge whether the person in front of you is going to track those brake lights to a stop. So if you look at the van that's directly in front of us, it doesn't have, now it's just starting to get brake lights on. But it's so close to that truck that put its brake lights on and tapped its brake, whereas we have, a couple dozen yards between us and that van. So as we merge here, we're going to have to fall behind another person and then create that space again.
Yeah, I guess maybe instead of thinking about it in terms of distance, think about it in terms of time. So you want at least like 10 or 20 seconds at your current speed.
Right.
Before you would end up at their bumper.
Right.
Yeah. And so here, the Lexus, so I'm going to try to back off a little bit.
Right. We're a little bit closer, but again, there are no brake lights. It seems like the traffic is accelerating. So we're good.
Yeah. Yeah, and another note, and this is just fluid dynamics, you never want to be in the lane that's being merged into. So always be in the lane that has to merge into the main traffic.
Right.
So when you're coming into the on-ramp, you always stay on the right as far as you can.
Right.
Don't try to merge too early.
Right.
And then I think that in general that's a good rule. That's just a little time saver.
And another one is, with this style of driving, there's really no good reason why you should be in an opportunistic way changing lanes. It won't matter if you.
Right. We're all going to a different place.
We're all going to a different place. People have a strange way on the freeway or on the expressway, like we are now, of gauging their progress by the number of cars they put in their rear view mirror. And that's just stupid. We think, anyway.
Yeah.
So this is really a highly defensive way of driving, not an aggressive way of driving. And because in driving situations, the speeds are so high and the potential for a collision is made worse by speed, the more distance you put between you and the next car, the safer you're going to drive.
So here, people are braking, and I would immediately start braking as soon as I see those lights. Whereas I think a lot of people might wait until they're, at the impact zone.
Right on top of the next guy, yeah.
So yeah, it's constant readjustment. It actually, I think, takes more mental energy in the beginning to get used to this. Definitely to shift from your old style of driving, but once you get comfortable with this idea of constantly realigning that distance, it gets very comfortable. It's kind of second nature.
So another thing I want to bring up is that when you do this, sometimes you can also improve the driving of the person and the traffic behind you, and I think that that's happening in this case. We've kind of built an eddy because we're a slower car. Well, we're not slower, we have more distance between us. But I'm going to turn the camera around here, and you can see that the van behind us is kind of on top of us, but really not tailgating. And the traffic behind us is moving at an improved clip because we're keeping our distance and not slowing down really.
Yeah, it's important to note that the driving style of people generally is the cause for many traffic jams. That rushing up against people's bumpers and then having to come to a stop because
there's no longer any distance.
Right, it's necessarily very inefficient. And when we start to see driverless cars come on the road, this is going to be the style that they use. They're going to maximize efficiency. They're going to maximize safety. And that
slow way down.
And that necessarily requires.
Hopefully you can see here, there's tons of brake lights going on and masses of cars at very close distances. And we want to slow down and make sure that our stopping distance adjusts so that we don't come to a complete stop. This is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
This is when you'll see people get skittish.
Yeah.
And you'll see people cutting in and out of the lane. But see, we are maintaining a distance which allows us to keep traveling.
This is called the Conshohocken Curve. It's notorious in Philadelphia as being the site of traffic jams.
All right.
Yeah.
Nicely done, Steve.
Thank you.
That was a pro move. That's really where your discipline is tested.
Yeah.
But we've got some mergers here. I don't know if they're gonna get in. This is another really good example of why this is a good style, is you can accommodate for people who want to merge but can't because the traffic is too tight. Ooh, you're close. Are you gonna keep going?
Hey, as long as the speedometer doesn't say 0, you're doing good.
Still creeping up there. Still creeping.
Yeah, there will come a certain time if the traffic jam is serious enough that there's nothing you can do. I don't think I technically stopped.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's close.
Yeah. I should have given a little bit more break.
Yep, and I don't think that you gave enough credence to how long those mergers were going to take.
Yeah.
You misappraised them. They were slow.
Yeah. So yeah, we're by no means pros at this. I think we're still learning, still feeling it out, but it's definitely a new technique that hopefully will catch on. I think everybody will be happier and healthier. 40,000 people die every year in traffic accidents, and I think this driving style could put a serious dent in that number. We don't have to wait for self-driving cars to get safer.
Also, on a road like this one, if there are two people who adhere to this style in both lanes, really great things can happen because people who are dodging in and out of lanes to try and pass are often impeded, but the flow of traffic behind the two people driving in this way is much more even. We hope.
Yeah.
We hope that people aren't, constantly trying to tailgate and then cause further kind of embottlements because of.
Now, I've never actually encountered somebody who seemed to purposefully be doing what we're trying to do. Josh, have you?
No. I mean, I've been doing it for a couple years now, and it seems to be, it seems to work generally.
Yeah.
Ooh, this truck is really
The danger.
making up
Yeah.
distance. But it looks like we've got another person in our there's a huge amount of space to Steve's left that hasn't been overtaken,
Yeah.
and that's a good sign. Usually, the left is where traffic is pouring over.
Right.
But if we see people that are judging the stopping distance and making the adjustment according to traffic volume, this guy's gonna stop. He's gonna stop. He
Yeah.
didn't judge it right.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll see truckers do it because they don't like to have to constantly engage their clutch after a full stop. So they'll coast and they'll keep a stopping distance to allow them to continue to coast, and then they can throw it into a gear.
Yeah, it also creates this illusion where people think that the right lane is now moving better because there's that gap that I've created. But it's a false impression that they're
Right.
getting.
Yep.
There is no advantage.
Again, that's that relative form of
Yeah.
driving where you're measuring your progress according to the number of cars you put in your rear view mirror.
Right.
I've had it so great because some people who are more aggressive, who are dodging in and out of lanes and then committed to the left lane, I've actually passed on the right. And it's been sweet. It's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I went slower than you. You know, this is the tortoise and the hare style of driving right here.
Yeah.
We're definitely the tortoise. But that's perceptual. We're moving just fine.
Right. Yeah, and I think it bears repeating the mental feeling, the experience of driving is so much improved, and that's something we can't really convey through video. But the amount of stress that I used to feel when I would drive this route, 76 to Philadelphia, is a stressful drive. It's it's a 2-lane highway the entire way. It's perched on this sort of mountain pass over a river, so they can't really expand it. So this is the way it is, and there's just more and more cars every year. And it's a very stressful drive, but after doing this, it's become pleasant. You know, it's a time to reflect. It gives you time to think. You're not always like herky-jerky, stopping and going. I definitely feel calmer, and I think that's something that's important to note. It's not just about creating safety; it's about creating peace.
Yeah, your mental space is greater. I also feel that you attend more sincerely to other drivers. You know, like maybe someone is, doing something that normally you would have been highly reactive to.
Right.
You know, you're just less so with this.
Right.
It's more. You're right.
Yeah, they can't hurt you.
Right. You have more margin.
Yeah, because in a lot of circumstances, the reason why we get upset at other drivers is because they threaten our safety. They threaten a collision.
Yeah.
Or they do something you're not expecting. But when you drive in this way, there's nothing that comes out of nowhere, right? Because you're not taking risks. So somebody can't cut in front of you because you're going relatively much slower than they are. If they're that style of driver, they're going to be, they'll never put you in danger.
Yeah, they tend to zoom past, in other words.
Right. Yeah, and so I feel like this driving style kind of reflects a general truth about living, which is that the way you treat others often comes back on you. Right? Like if you're driving aggressively, then other drivers seem to be aggressive.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Also, there's a kind of a presumption of patience. We're not in a rush to reach our destination by a certain hour.
Right.
At this point, we've also anticipated that we need a certain amount of margin in terms of time. And so for that reason, we're not rushed. We don't feel that we have to tailgate the person, immediately in front of us in order to reach our destination. And so because we understand that, we know that if we just keep our distance and continue to drive in this sort of prudent way, we'll be able to get there much safer.
But also, I mean, even if you were in a rush,
you could still do this.
Yeah, because you're not. How many minutes can you actually save by driving? Tailgating, and hugging other people's bumpers.
Right.
I just don't. I don't see the time savings actually being meaningful.
And how many of us, if we did get into an accident, would just say, "Oh, if I had only," you know, we would clearly trade out.
Yeah.
Arriving late before getting in an accident. And so this is one of the ways that we think that we can identify and say, look, this will not only keep you from an accident, it will, greatly reduce the probability that you have one because the distances are so long.
Yeah. Yeah, the blue Focus that was behind us for a while finally got aggravated.
He leaked.
Yeah, and then he gave me the eye.
Uh-huh.
He passed. It's an interesting reaction. Where is he now?
Yeah. Good job. You're 40 feet ahead of us or whatever. 40 yards, 50 yards.
Yeah, and we're all going to a different place, so...
Right.
Yeah. The only time where that driving style might make sense is if, you were going to some event. This is the only road that leads to that event, and there's a limited number of parking spaces.
Yeah.
Then I can imagine being like, yeah, okay, let's drive that way.
Well, and we presume that most people on the road are going there too.
Oh,
that was dangerous. We just got passed on the right.
Right. But it's all, nothing bothers me when I drive this way. It's like, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep, just let him go.
Like, join the fray.
Yep.
Go ahead, pal. It's, it's interesting.
And also, we wouldn't be noticeably different if everyone else drove this way.
Right.
Because if the traffic volume were low enough that we could all go, the speed limit or perhaps above, we would be there. We would be, going 65, no problem. But we know and we anticipate that we can't do that.
Yeah.
And so with the knowledge that we anticipate that we can't do that, we're adjusting our speed so that we just don't stop and we go at the, highest possible speed without stopping.
Yeah, and I would wager our average speed and their average speed is the same.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
They're just going 60 and 0, and we're going 40
and 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's really scary to me is that people not only drive this way, but they do it and they're doing it distracted. They're driving this way,
and they're texting,
and they're tailgating, and they're playing around with the radio or whatever it is, and it's I think there's a big problem there with cell phones and the alternative driving style. But I would never condone cell phone use while driving. However, if one really does need to use their cell phone, doing it while you're driving in our way, in the enlightened way, is going to be far safer.
Yeah. You're giving yourself margin for error.
Yeah.
And just those few seconds.
Right.
And it really is seconds.
Right.
You know?
It's a difference of seconds. Right.
The car is moving quite fast.
Yeah. It's fast enough.
It is possible too that, you know, hopefully maybe this video can do a little evangelizing of this, you know, way of driving, but if more people did it, the sort of obstacles of adoption of self-driving cars may be lower, because in this way we are basically anticipating traffic to such a great extent that drivers behind us might become furious for us being slower or having the distance that we have between the next car, but we're really being consistent about the rule that we follow. And computers are going to have algorithms that, although they will be, you know, finely tuned and somewhat complex, they'll have to be simple in order to operate well. I know that Subaru has a car that has a cruise control feature that you can set the distance away from the next car. That'll be somewhat similar to the way that the self-driving cars operate. However, it will be much more difficult for those self-driving cars to operate in a world where piloted cars, human-piloted cars, are continuing to bob in and out of traffic, to stop at unpredictable times, or to, you know, do things like a right merge like we just saw.
Right.
Without an algorithm sort of similar to ours that involves managing the distance between the car that is directly in front. And so if we get more people thinking about driving in this way and actually doing it, it'll be less of a hurdle for those self-driving cars that rely on a similar, you know, pattern to be accepted on the roads.
Yeah. Increasing safety. It's pretty much the biggest outcome of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. No two ways about it.
Well, that was basically the little tutorial that we had in mind. There might be a better time to do it in heavier traffic, but that was pretty good.
That was pretty good. Yeah, I think it's great that we got to our destination safely. We never actually stopped, despite very heavy traffic and stop and go traffic. We never stopped.
Right.
And I think that's a success.
Yeah.
It's a successful demonstration.
And hopefully, if there's anyone out there who cares to, you can practice this too in your own time. It will hopefully help you get to where you need to go safer, and also, you know, keep you in that nice state of mind, mainly a non-aggressive, defensive, just going about your business kind of way to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be better than the way that you had been driving.
Driving judo.
Yes.